All right, welcome to video 5. This video is all about global wind patterns. So hopefully you'll remember from when we talked about the different types of wind patterns that exist and why they exist. But just a reminder, there's 4 properties that determine air circulation patterns. The first is air density. So this just gives you an idea. At sea level, you have more particles per area than you would at 14,000 feet. This would be like alpine life zone. Another example is, or another property that determines it is water vapor capacity, or the humidity. The saturation point is the point at which the water is no longer able to be held in the atmosphere, and therefore you would start to get fog or rain. So this is an example of, at 90 degrees, the air is able to carry more water than at 40 degrees Fahrenheit. This graph here shows you the water vapor capacity based on the temperature. Notice at 0 it cannot hold any water almost, all the way up to 100 degrees where it holds the most amount. Another part is adiabatic heating and cooling. And this is all about the changes in pressure. Remember that air rises, then it gets into a lower pressure, the volume expands, which allows the air to cool. So this is part of that process. This is just showing you how air changes as it rises and falls. As it goes up, the reason that it cools is because there's less pressure, which allows it to expand. And if you remember from the gas laws, it says that if you expand a volume of gas, the temperature should fall. And then latent heat release is the last little bit, and this is just the release of energy as heat when the water vapor condenses into precipitation. So as water condenses and as it freezes, there is heat released or being taken from the environment. In order for sublimation or for melting and then evaporation to occur, you have to have energy coming in, whereas going the other way, heat has to be released. In order to convert a vapor into a liquid or into an ice, it has to release energy. Remember, energy has to go somewhere. It can't just disappear. So this is just an example of a little bit of that process that occurs in a high pressure area where you have warm, dry air. It is going to try to move towards a low pressure. High pressure moves to low pressure. This is what causes different weather patterns to exist. As it goes to a low pressure, you get hotter, wet air. It will rise, it will condense and precipitate, or it will go from a high pressure to a low pressure again, which will allow it to cool and then become more dry. Heat is also released into space through radiation. So this is just a very basic understanding of how water and air circulate through the atmosphere through high and low pressure systems. If you remember the Coriolis effect, hopefully, in the Coriolis effect, remember it's based on the fact that the air moving at the equator is moving faster than the air moving north or south of it, and it causes different winds to exist. Remember that the 30-degree marks and then 60-degree marks are where you get these changes, because you have a wet zone at 0, you have dry zones at 30, and then wet zones again at 60, dry zones at the very top. If you recall, these are our different Hadley, Ferrel, and polar cells. So remember, Hadley exists right at the equator up to the 30 mark, and then you get Ferrel cells, which are the opposite, because this is where you get that dry air which causes a different process. And this can hopefully be explained here, because as you have drier air, you're going to have lower pressure, which is going to cause it to move in a different direction. The different wind patterns or prevailing winds, the westerlies exist between the 30 and 60 on both sides. And then the trade winds exist between 0 and 30, depending on which side you're on, if you're on the northeast or the southeast. But remember, the trade winds will move from east to west, the westerlies, named westerly, moved from west to east. And then you have at the very top, those are the easterly winds. They're not on this graph, but the easterly winds moved from east to west, whereas westerly is west to east. So this is a video on the Coriolis effect. Let's see if we can get it to play. Maybe. Maybe not. This video is one that we showed in class, if you recall. Here we go. And I want to show it to you again just so that we can get a good understanding of the Coriolis effect. So enjoy. Turn the sound on. And the sound is on.
If you've ever watched the news during a hurricane or wintertime nor'easter, you've probably noticed that big storms spin over time as they travel.
Yeah, I don't think the video
in the northern hemisphere, they spin counterclockwise. But if you were watching a storm in the southern hemisphere...
If you go to the link here, I'll show you the link. Actually, if you just go to YouTube and search for Coriolis effect on YouTube, you will find it.
You'd see it spinning clockwise.
Coriolis effect by Nova.
Why do storms spin in a sphere? You'd see it spinning clockwise.
Coriolis effect a little bit better. Sorry for the technical delays. I was hoping to be able to show that, but can't win them all. So we will move on. This map just shows you some of those processes that occur. Now remember that if the Earth was perfectly all one surface, then we would have those winds would make more sense and look just like they do on the graphs and on the images. But because we have continents, it does change the ability for some of those systems to move from one way to another in the way that we would expect them to. So that is the end of video 5, all about global wind patterns. Video 6 will be about watersheds.